Well, today the leaders of the world's biggest economies will gather at Camp David for the G8 summit. The most important issue on the table, how to stop Europe's debt crisis from spiraling out of control. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is Thomas Wright, fellow from the Brookings Institution. Good morning, Thomas. Thanks for joining us this morning. Let's talk about the G8 summit. It seems like it's going to be dominated by Europe and preventing the debt crisis there. Why should the average American care? Why is it important to us across the pond, you could say?
Yeah, but the euro crisis is probably the single greatest threat to the global economy and to the American recovery at the moment. The best way to think about Greece is to compare it to Lehman Brothers. In 2008, when Lehman Brothers fell, it wasn't just the fall of one bank, it was a systemic shock that resulted in a grave threat to other financial institutions and to the US economy as a whole, and indeed to other countries across the world. Greece is a lot larger than an investment bank, and there's a serious concern that there will be contagion if Greece falls out of the euro or if the Greek economy were to completely collapse, and that contagion would spread to other sovereign countries in Europe, to major banks in Europe, and then very quickly, like a tsunami across the Atlantic, to the American economy. So it is, I think, the only sort of major danger there to a recovery, and it's the reason why markets are so anxious.
And very important for President Obama to come out on top on that issue.
Exactly right. The Greek crisis and Angela Merkel's response to it will probably go some way to determining whether or not President Obama is re-elected in November, because his election depends so much on economic growth and a reduction in unemployment, that if this crisis were really to erupt over the summer and cause a serious double dip in the summer and the early fall, it could deal a real death blow to President Obama's re-election hopes. And I think the White House is very aware of that, and that's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons they're so engaged with Europeans on how to address and solve the crisis.
Now, the summit will be the first for newly elected French President François Hollande. What's he like? What can we expect from him?
Yeah, well, François Hollande has had a baptism of fire as President of France. He was inaugurated just a couple of days ago. He went immediately to Berlin to meet Angela Merkel and had his plane struck by lightning. He's over today to meet with President Obama this morning. He has Camp David this afternoon and tomorrow, and then NATO on Sunday and Monday. So this is a tough first week by any standard for a new president. But he will, this will be his first opportunity as president to meet with President Obama. It'll be his second opportunity to meet with Chancellor Merkel. So I think he will, it'll be a continuation of the getting to know you phase, but also he'll be anxious to try to make a good impression and to show that on Afghanistan he's being constructive, because during the campaign he said certain things that weren't received well over here. And I think also President Obama may see François Hollande as an ally. For the past couple of years, Obama has been at odds with Chancellor Merkel about the austerity versus stimulus debate, and to some degree Hollande is on Obama's side on this. He's in favor of stimulus and growth, just as President Obama is. So President Obama may be hoping that Hollande's addition to the G8 and as President of France will shift the balance of power in America's favor.
Russian President Vladimir Putin will not be attending the summit. Some are making that out to be a bit of a snub. The Prime Minister is coming instead. What should we make of this?
Yes, well, President Putin will meet with President Obama next month in Mexico. I think he decided to skip this in part because the G8 isn't as important as it used to be. To some degree, the G20 is it's filling the role that the G8 used to have. I also think President Putin didn't want to be ganged up on by the other members of the G8, and he's also adopting a wait-and-see approach. He knows that in November there's an election here. It could be, in his mind, it could easily be Romney or Obama, so he doesn't want to do a deal at the moment that may unravel a few months later, whether it's a missile defense or something else. So I don't think we'll see much action or movement from Russia before the November election.
Thomas Wright, thank you very much for your insight this morning from the Brookings Institution.
Thank you.